He ends up bedding down with a doe. Now, I can't see him or the doe, but I could see the mother deer, and I could, pinpoint where he bedded because it was so thick, he just disappeared. Tomorrow's gone. I had to do something about this. So I get down out of my saddle. The wind is blowing. We got 15-mile-hour gusts. It's blowing up. Every time the wind blew, I walked 10 steps. He's on the bottom. I was up one bench. As I get to the edge of the bench, I made a mistake and I jumped a little buck that I didn't see right under me. Oh. He runs. The big buck stands up. He runs. The little buck runs past him. He keeps an eye on the little buck, runs. He drops right back down. The doe never moved. He dropped. I lost him completely, but I just memorized the bush that he laid in, and I kept walking. And it got to about 40 yards when I realized that this could possibly work. I was going to give it my all.
He didn't believe it at first, but yeah, it's getting better.
So I get to 40 and I stop, and I was like, well, if he comes up here, I could get a shot. But then again, I'm like, I'm going to be a little greedy. I got this far. Let me cut another 15, 20 yards off. The wind's perfect. I have cover. So I get to this big rock with a big oak tree. I dumped my bag down, everything that I had on, because I brought my pack, and I ranged the bush. It's 31 yards where the bush he's in. When I picked up the rangefinder, I noticed the doe. She was 20 yards exactly, but she was facing the other way. I was probably standing on that rock for about, 5-10 minutes, and she happened to get up and start feeding. And as she gets up, he gets up, stretches. I range him. It was 32 yards. I draw back, and as I'm looking through my peep, I'm like, it's too thick. I just did all this work. If I hit the smallest of sticks, I'm going to blow this whole thing. All this work I just did, it took me 3 hours to get to him. I let down draw, and it was kind of like a gully where he is, and I didn't realize he almost disappears, but he comes up face on to me, and the doe was kind of out here. So what he does was he tries to circle the doe back into the thicket. He was stepping up out of the thing. I drew back, and I'm holding my draw, and he kind of stops, and he just looks at me.
You're now listening to the Mobile Venatic podcast. Oh, that's a giant. All right. This is episode 7 or 8, depending on if we do Robert's Maryland hunt on this podcast. So we'll see about that. But I'm gonna interrupt you right now. You probably won't like it because we are so dead dog tired that it just sounds so boring. Yeah. You mean just grinding through the swamp every morning, every night? It's not
for 7 days.
7 days
we'll see.
Straight.
I gotta listen to it again to know for sure if we're gonna post something
and
like
chasing
that or not,
the equivalent of a raccoon-sized animal.
yeah, pretty much.
That's insane. So we wanted to jump into this episode and kind of give a season update. It's today, at the time of recording, it's November 19th. A lot of us are jumping in and out of the saddle every morning, or swinging all day. Just kind of making it work with work and keeping everything running at Trophyline. We have a guest on, as you guys can tell. It's Brandon. He works for us. He does our customer service, and we're gonna jump into his story after a little bit of update. But he smoked a really good.
Don't ruin it. I haven't heard the story either, so I'm kind of excited to hear about it.
Yeah, and I just briefly.
Pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty good story, I think.
But yeah, we just kind of wanted to give a season update. Again, this might come out in a week or two. It'd probably be late November, but it's mid-November. We're smack dab in the middle of the rut and actually approaching my favorite time to hunt here in Indiana, which is like the post, where they start getting a little bit crazy with chasing instead of locked down or still kind of careful. I think they're starting to run loose.
Definitely.
With it. But yeah, Bobby, you can start with your update. I know you guys. First off, Bobby's team over at Man Over Beast has just been slaying this year.
Not so much me. I mean, so when was the last update we gave? I mean, we've been hunting since the end of August. Started with North Dakota, came back home to Michigan. Oh no, sorry. Started in North Dakota, came back home for just a little bit, went out to Montana for a big game combo, came back home, hunted in Michigan for a little bit, went over to the East Coast, came back home, back down to Indiana, and then back home again. I think that's like the stretch of so far this year. I had it figured out, like out of 2 months, I hunted over like, or at least been gone away from home for like 38 days, which is
You've been hunting hard.
dude. Like I have had no interest this last week in even going out. Like the 15th was gun opener here in Michigan, and I hunted for a half morning with the kids, and that was the only reason I went out, because I wanted to take the kids out. But I know me and Weston have talked about it before. It's like you can burn yourself out so fast.
You can
trying to just squeeze in so much stuff, and it was unintentional. I didn't mean to get this many tags and have these many hunts lined up. It's especially when you're dealing with draw systems and stuff like that, and then coming from a past background of not being able to hunt that much to then having last year and this year of like, I want to make up for the last decade.
Kid in a candy store, dude.
Right.
He got too aggressive. He started grabbing. He got too aggressive.
Yeah, but it's been fun. I mean, in all the states that we've been, so North Dakota, I didn't kill, but my cousin Michael killed one in Velvet. Montana didn't kill, but my buddy Josh, he had a shot at a non-typical bull. It must have damaged its antlers in Velvet because the left side dropped down, and I don't have a lot of good footage of it, but you'll be able to see it. Let's see, back home, didn't have any early season success myself, but I filmed my cousin Michael again, shooting a non-typical, I think it ended up being 13 points, just Pope and Young size, 3.5-year-old. And then East Coast, I was successful in shooting my first Sika deer. That shot a hind, which is the female version of the Sika. The males are stags, so that was really sweet. I had intentions of shooting the first thing I could shoot, and it just happened to be the very last 15 minutes of the 7-day hunt we were out there, and she came bounding around at 12 yards, probably, something like that. Sent one through her. That was awesome. Yeah, and so far we've had a roast from the back leg. We had that down in Illinois last week with the working class boner guys. That was pretty good.
Except for it's the size of a squirrel for 7 people.
So like we met the DNR out there. So this is mid-October when this happened. So we met the DNR dragging her out, and he was super friendly. And he said it was 1.5 years old. And I still am not sure if that's even true, because she probably weighed 50 pounds full grown and before dressed. But I've also read too, like the males, the stags can weigh anywhere from 75 to 120. So it's just a new element, new animal to chase that I'm not familiar with. So it was really cool. Yeah, really good tasting meat. Still have half the critter left. And I think I still have the back straps. I know I did the inner loins, but the back straps, I know I still have. So. And then where'd I go from there, Weston? What did I say? Back home?
You and then you actually a lot of the trophy line.
On November 2nd.
50% of the trophy line team that hunts killed out.
Yeah. Yeah. I shot a nice 2.5-year-old that I mistook for a 3.5, but I have no complaints. I'm not going to try and do that thing disjustice. He was a beautiful 2.5-year-old in a beautiful morning hunt. And I think it was like Jeff texted buck down.
Yeah.
I was like 2 minutes later, I'm like buck down. And then Nick shot one in the afternoon. He shot a really cool non-typical.
Yep. So Jeff Malara, another customer service guy, it's on our team, and then Nick, operations, logistics, and new product stuff. He killed. We've had him on this podcast before. He also killed. He killed a really good buck. Solid one side, and the other side was crazy.
Yeah. Oh, cool looking deer.
Very good. Cool. Very good PA buck. And then you jumped down to Indiana.
Jumped down to Indiana for a little bit. Had zero success. Saw like 2 deer, and that was with you. Heard some blowing at Michael one day.
Yeah.
And then came home, didn't hunt. Went back over to Illinois to go hunt with you and working class bow hunters, where we almost had some success last day. Just don't want to really spoil it too much.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of killing in camp.
Yes.
So
and if you guys want to hear,
a very good time.
If you guys want to hear about that, they did a what was it called? Oh my gosh.
Middle of the map hunt camp.
Map hunt camp. There's a part 1 and a part 2. Part 1, they dive into the biggest buck. Well, not the biggest buck of the trip. Sorry. Until Kurt shot his giant.
Well, no, that was after we left. I don't know if that counts. Yeah. Devin's buck. Yeah.
Devin's buck, 160 plus, and almost 170, and then really, it's like that was complicated because cell cameras complicate everything. We were sitting there in Illinois, and like all these other states were turning on fire. Indiana in particular.
Indiana was on fire. Yeah.
November 5th through 10th, Indiana just like we had this cold front that swung through, and Illinois like you got a blip, but Indiana just like it was crazy. Shooters all over camera, people tagging out left and right.
I think it had a lot to do with the inconsistent weather in Illinois because Indiana had that had a full front move through, and where we were in Illinois, it was almost like a partial front.
Yeah.
Because we're like barely hit the rain and temperature only dropped maybe like 8 to 9 degrees.
Yep.
And then we had super high winds for a couple days there too.
Yeah.
But during that same time, while you were down there again, my cousin Michael in Indiana and my buddy Derek, who is kind of does some stuff for us too for Trophyline.
Yep.
They both tagged out on November 7th, I think it was.
Yes, it was. It was the Thursday. Was it Thursday?
Yeah, Derek shot mid 140s. I can't remember how many points that was.
That was a nice buck too.
Very nice buck. And then my cousin Michael shot just shy of 140, split G2s, really nice buck.
My brother the very next day shot a 150s 10 point off a property that we just acquired this year.
Was it that big?
I haven't put tape to it yet, but just based off the pictures, it's pretty nice. And they take really bad pictures. So if he would have taken great pictures, I would have said 160. But it was a good buck. But yeah, struggle.
Yeah, and then so far to wrap up my season up to this point, I've still got an Indiana tag to fill. I've still got another Michigan tag I could fill. I've got a North Dakota tag that I'm gonna try and get back in the late season for. I could go back to the East Coast, but I'm not worried about the East Coast. And we had a great time at the Buck Bowl this past weekend. Saw tons of big bucks. It was fantastic time. Oh yeah, it was awesome. Yeah. Yeah, make Buck Bowls great again, baby.
Yeah, definitely.
Before I jump into my portion of this year so far, we want to say again, today's November 19th. Over the past, I'd say 3 or 4 days, we've gotten 6 submissions for Trophyline success stories and some big deer falling from saddles. One of the latest I just read, I can't remember what state it was. The guy grabbed a dawn to dusk kit, went in, like, I don't even know if he practiced. He didn't really say, but it just sounded like he grabbed the kit, went in,
yeah,
and he'd been hunting from a climber, got in this really crooked, nasty small tree, and got right in the top of it, and he said it was such a good sit in the afternoon that in the morning he just left his set up in there, and 10 minutes after legal shooting light, it was a nice 130-inch buck, if I'm remembering the picture right, just came right on by at 10 yards on a strong side, and he nailed it.
Jeez.
So we're sharing those stories. If you guys want to go submit a story, we love to see those. We love just the support and seeing that it's working for guys, and just hearing that we're doing things right. So definitely submit those stories. But I have not had any success this year. This has been, last year was hard, but this year I was tallying it up, like 8 encounters with 140 plus deer within 70 yards, but no shot. Actually, one shot I did miss like a 130-inch buck.
Last year?
This year. Remember the one I called you on? Yeah, I missed. He got me actually excited. He was going out to 50, and he was like exiting the funnel, but then he decided to come at the 30-yard trail, and I drew back. He ended up jumping like 10 yards diagonally. I still thought he was on the 30-yard trail, and it was like 35, and I shot right under his belly.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. I'm not too upset about it.
Man.
Yeah. But 8 encounters with 140-inch. I have 3 tags now with Illinois, and that's a lot for me. I hate carrying a lot of tags. Usually I just carry an Indiana and Kentucky tag, but this year got mixed up pretty fast from the start. We had a lot of EHD reports coming out of both states, southern Indiana. I'm hunting in southern Indiana and northern Kentucky, and we had a lot of EHD updates. I hit some Kentucky public. I walked a mile and saw 5 dead deer, so I was like, oh, this might actually be hit. There is some high deer density, so I decided to keep hunting, and I've been seeing a lot of deer, and had I'm thinking 3 cameras out in Kentucky and 10 in Indiana. Indiana was dead, and those 3 Kentucky cameras were out producing. So I just started hammering Kentucky and finding really good sign. The crazy part was this year, the acorns were unbelievable. White oak acorns. I mean, just walking on some kid just spilled his entire bucket of marbles. It was insane this year. I don't know if you guys had the same, but it was
up by me, big time.
And I think, Brandon, correct me if you saw the same thing. Like, it seemed like there was not a lot of that October consistent like scrape activity movement in the early parts, for me at least, because I didn't think they had to move as far because there was so much of an abundance of acorns over previous years.
Right. I think so too. There was just acorns everywhere.
Yeah. I was able to identify like a chinkapin oak last year and stack up on some really good deer encounters. This year just didn't feel like that early on.
I agree.
And then I think it turned on when it had to because of the pre-rut and them getting up on their feet, and then a couple cold fronts, and that it was in typical fashion, but like I didn't get that October 5th through 15th or 20th action that I normally get.
Yeah.
It was kind of dead.
Not until the very end of
Yes.
October I started seeing movement.
Yeah. So that's kind of how my season went, and then all of a sudden I made a promise to myself to keep moving and keep finding better and better sign and kind of always be moving. I've had a lot of years where I don't get aggressive enough and don't move in far enough to get those encounters once I know that there's a couple hitless bucks in there. And I started doing that, and I had back-to-back encounters. In Kentucky, I had 2 shooters within 70 yards almost going at it with each other. Multiple occasions I had these same deer coming in within 70 yards.
Right.
Just never could get a shot with a bow. And then some gun season stuff kind of hit, and I had to back out, and I haven't been back since, and the cameras have also been dead. But I wanted to also concentrate on Indiana. Come back to Indiana, I've had lately, when was it? This weekend? I'm trying to remember. No, it was Monday. I think it was Monday. No. Sorry, it was last week. Last Thursday or Friday. Me and Bobby have this place that he knows about. It's called Hellhole. And he doesn't
stupid.
He doesn't like going
dumb.
in there.
I went in there in the spring with him one time. He keeps bugging me. He's like, just go in here and film me. He's like, or you can get 130 guaranteed. I'm like, I'm not going back in there. I don't care.
This is it is a hellhole. It is it's a giant piece of public, and there's like 1-2 entryways you can get in there besides private, and one is a sheer just climb right out of the parking lot, and it's an absolute suck fest, and you sweat, and then you got to walk like 2 miles.
Yeah, it's like isn't that like a 700-foot climb?
No, it's 400. So
but it's like straight up still.
Yeah, it's straight up. And that down where I'm from, there's a lot of that. So it's not crazy abnormal, but it's a pretty crazy suck right out of the gate. And the other side is there is no trail. You have to it's one of those things where you got to climb uphill, then side hill, and then you got to go downhill, and then you got to go back up the hill and then down a ravine. It's just it's hard to do, and you have to keep your eye on Onyx the entire time, or Spartan, and just work it. And it sucks because you can kind of get off. There's no even if you put taxi, you get lost in there. It's just a thick multiflora, just nasty place. But there's a lot of good bucks. This year in particular, when I was in Illinois, there was 5 shooters on camera in daylight within 2 days. So I was like, I got to get in there. I went in there. I hit the rattling antlers together, and I'm pretty sure it's the biggest buck I've ever seen on the hoof while hunting. The closest he was 66 yards, and he was a really big deer. I mean, he's a nice deer. I'd say, what do you say? Oh, he's definitely over 160, Bobby.
It was hard for me to tell, but frame wise,
he's over 160.
Right.
Could be bigger. Good G2s, good G3s, G4s. I mean, he's just big frame. He came at 66, worked out. He came into the rattling, and he didn't like the grunts. And then I eventually hit him with a snort wheeze, and he really didn't like that. And he backed out. In total, I rattled 5 bucks in, saw some does, saw another giant 8 that we've got on there, and he came from behind me downwind. The negative part of that morning hunt that I knew better to do it was I didn't have sun and I didn't have rising thermals. So it was just kind of straight shot across the ridgetop.
Yep.
He worked in behind me and got me pretty fast. And, if I would have had a muzzleloader in my hand, he would have been smoked. Both deer could have been smoked. And that's what I'm planning on doing now, is taking the muzzleloader in there and
Right.
and hopefully getting a good shot at either one of those deer. But that's kind of my season so far, and I need to stack some does, I need to stack some meat, and then hopefully get a buck in either
I mean,
state.
you got a good amount of season left, so
Yeah,
we all do.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's and I think it goes back to Robert. Like, don't burn yourself and don't burn your family out early.
Yeah.
You know,
That's the hard
stack it.
part for me. Yeah, is just
Yeah.
having kids at home and a wife that I love and all that stuff. That's what makes it tough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Don't.
I mean, and the good thing about Robert, you shot a buck. You know,
Yeah.
take a little
Yeah.
bit of time. You still
Yep.
got a good amount of season, and you don't feel as bad about taking days off when you shot one. You know.
Right. I mean, I got a lot of work to do anyway, so it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I might as well sit down in front of the computer for a week or two straight and then get back to it.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
yeah. Now I want to jump into Brandon, your short season, and then getting into this big buck story on public. It's awesome, and I know a very
Yeah.
small portion of it, so I'm really excited to hear the rest of it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, this is my first season ever. It started with turkey hunting, but this is my first season ever stepping on public land.
Oh,
I
wow.
just never put the time in or any interest in it. I always hated hunting around people because I always had my own little private spots. So that kind of deterred me away from any type of public. So this year, I first started hunting public. I'm very close to the border of Connecticut, like a half hour away. And their turkey season opens about a week and a half earlier than ours. And I love turkey season. So a week and a half more of turkey season, I was going to take advantage of it and jump on some public land. So that was my first experience on public land. I did a lot of scouting. I ended up shooting my first turkey out of state in Connecticut on public land this year,
Nice.
which was a big accomplishment for me because
yeah.
like I never hunted public. And the amount of sign that I found on public land just by turkey hunting was just mind-blowing. So I knew right away that I have to try to, whether it be bow early or late bow season, just try to get onto some type of public land.
Had you perceived a lot of pressure, human pressure at that point, like coming off of turkey season in that?
Turkey season, opening day there, I saw two people in the parking lot, and this was on a 900-acre chunk. Turkey season obviously is a little different than hunt season, right? You're moving around, so it's a little different. So at first there, I kind of was a little skeptical about it. But then the next day, there was no one there. And then the next day, there was no one there. And the next day, there was no one there. It was kind of like an opening day thing. So, I started putting time in that way. And it made me feel better about public land. I'm sure not every place is like that. Just happened to be this spot that I went to was less hunted. And like I said, the amount of sign that I seen, I knew I had to get cameras, whether it be Connecticut or New York. Now, that was just Connecticut. I never stepped on New York public land turkey hunting. Always had my turkey spots here. So after hunting a week turkey hunting, I did that, whatever, hunted turkey here, got a turkey in New York. And I started to do a lot of research all summer long. Well, late spring, I would say, right after turkey season, I just started doing research on public land. And then I also started doing research on public land around here. And just started going to different places, walking around, finding sign. But I was, like I said, I was still skeptical. I ended up running into people, scouting, and it kind of just deterred me a little bit. So I kind of abandoned the public land hunting deal in the summer for New York. Connecticut, I knew I was definitely going to do because Connecticut season opens September 15th. My season doesn't open until October 1st. So I still have a 2-week early season.
Right.
I always see a lot of good bucks early season on camera here, right before, that whole pre-rut phase. I put cameras, and I was getting a lot of good bucks in this spot where I turkey hunted in Connecticut. So I knew right away I'm going to hunt Connecticut public land. So September 15th rolls around. No hunting in Connecticut on Sunday, which was September 15th. So Monday morning, I hunted in there.
They do that too, huh? No Sunday hunting?
Yeah. No Sunday only on public land in Connecticut.
Bunch of communists over there.
Well, you know what it is? It's the hike. It's all the hikers. Because a lot of the places have trails.
Yeah.
So they kind of split the weekend,
I want to say something before you go into that. I was hunting a place that was like that my first ever time, and it's cool that when you get a lot of foot traffic like that, that's non-hunting related, the deer hit ground scent and they flick their tail. Or they actually get your main scent and they forget about it within 15
Right.
minutes. It's crazy. Yeah,
It is.
Wanted to throw that in there because I was
No, it
experiencing
is.
a lot of that this year.
I started hunting there, and I've talked to a lot of buddies that hunt Connecticut and public land here. They're like, you got to get in far. You got to get in far. So my spot, I ended up walking, a mile and a half, maybe a touch over to get in. It's on a main walking trail, and then I've just cut off. So I really wasn't walking off of human trail for that long. Just kind of walked the main trail, cut off. And I was having a lot of success, meaning seeing deer. The pre-rut activity out there was way earlier than here. Early October, I was seeing a lot of activity. Young bucks just messed around. And I started saying, you know what, this is kind of almost too much for me every day to go here, walk in, a mile and a half every day. It's cutting a lot of my time out because I can't do that every day.
Yeah.
So I ended up finding a spot that happened to be a little bit closer, a little bit of easier of a walk, set up a camera. And then there was this regular 8-pointer, just a little decent 8-pointer, nothing crazy, but I wanted to get my first public land buck. Really wasn't worried about it. Wasn't going to shoot a 4-pointer or something like that, but I just wanted to get one under my belt. Connecticut gives you 3 buck tags, which is crazy.
Oh, shoot.
Wow.
Dang.
Crazy buck tags.
Yeah.
So, it's 2 with the bow, and then later season, it's one. You could get one of either sex.
Everybody at this moment is now researching how far Connecticut is away from them.
This is like target-rich environment. Yeah, there's a lot of success.
So I was like, I mean, I'm a trophy hunter. I love, who doesn't like chasing a big buck, but I wanted to get one under my belt. So, October 25th, it was actually 25th, the morning I get in there. I really haven't had that much on camera. It was kind of like a dead spot. I set up my saddle, get set up, put the camera on, everything's ready to go. And I mean, it's just shooting light. It just turned shooting light, and I hear something from behind me walking down the ridge. And I pick up the binos and I look. It looked like a decent 8. So I knew right away. I said, you know what? I'm going to take the shot. It was like my goal. I got a turkey this year. It was my goal to shoot a buck on public land. And I happened to make a perfect clean shot. I got it all on film.
Sick.
Ran 30 yards, dumped over. It was a downhill drag to the truck. It was just a perfect spot,
That's awesome.
So with that being said, I was kind of even more hooked on public land. I didn't get a huge buck, but I got a buck. It made me happy. I was just really ecstatic about the whole thing. It's something that you set out to do, and then you achieve it. It makes you,
So at that point, like, was and this is how it is for me, and I think Robbie, you coming down here to Indiana, like, you've seen this lately, like, is it that public offering you more opportunity at some better potential bucks as well than your private was?
Yeah. See, well, my private is here is just suburban backyard.
Okay.
5-acre chunk,
Right.
6-acre chunk. It's not like, you get them on camera, but those deer ain't living there. They're passing through.
Right. Right.
You don't, I don't want to say this in a bad way, but you don't have to use your brain as much to hunt suburban property versus actually public land where you don't know anything.
Well, because you probably can't sit too many places. There's like, a handful of places you can actually hunt.
It's a funnel.
Really,
what is a funnel? If you take the houses out of it, it's just a funnel on a huge piece of woods, but the houses just make a funnel a little bit easier. Right. You know what I'm saying? The deer use more. So I've been doing that my whole life. I grew up in a development with permission on a 9-acre piece. I walked down the road every day when I was young, 13, 14, 15, and I would always shoot a buck. Every year I would shoot a buck. And it almost was easy, really.
Right.
I would always see one. I would always get connection on a buck, but it wasn't the quality of bucks. My buddies are shooting 125s, 130s, which are good bucks for up here in New York. They really are, Yeah. That's a respectable buck. You shoot a 125-inch buck here, all your friends are talking about it. They're coming over, they're looking at it. Wow. You know what I mean? It's different than a lot of people, that hunt the Midwest. You guys are in big buck states. Well,
no, I'm with you. You shoot 125, you've got a big buck.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Kentucky, yeah.
It's different.
Mm-hmm.
My up here, a 125 is like, where Weston is a 150, a 160. It's just, that's how it is. So after after I found, the public land, Connecticut, and it worked out, I started looking here again. And back in the summer, I found a place literally 3 miles from my house.
Oh, dang.
And it ended up being little over 1,800 acres, but of sheer mountain, just hard hunting. So I looked at it like, okay, there shouldn't be too many people there, just the amount of hard hunting that it is. So I went and scouted it out, and I went in the beginning of October. I set up cameras middle of October. I was a little late to the game with this spot.
Were you setting up on fresh sign or like scrape?
Yeah, so
acorn?
I walked in. I'm not maybe 400 yards from the parking area, not crazy far. I just wanted to check it out, see. And on the walk in, I seen somebody coming out saying they were checking their trail cameras, So I said, okay. And I asked them, nobody's going to answer this correctly probably, but you see anything on the cameras?
Right.
And the way he said no was like, this guy's got some deer on the cameras, because the way he said no was just no, and kind of gave a laugh and said, have a good day. So I walk in and I kind of see where he came from. And I actually walked in past his spot. He had like a little stand set up low to the ground, and he had a camera by his stand, which I never seen anybody put a camera, literally a stand in the camera. And the guy, that's right where he was. He said he checked his camera. And I walked past that, and it goes down. And as soon as I stepped over the rock wall to go down, just nothing but oaks. It was a windy day, raining down.
Oh,
I mean, you could have wore a hard hat in there. It was crazy.
Yeah.
So I walk down, and I'm just, scouting around, and I see 2 rubs, big trees just rubbed up. So I said, there's no need to go further. It looks like it gets really thick. It kind of goes down on the bottom, and you can see where it goes up on the other side. So I just said, instead of pushing, I'm going to throw up a couple cameras close. My first time in New York public land, so I just took some older cell cameras that really quality aren't good, but I wouldn't mind if someone stole them. I just expected that. I didn't lock them. So I just put those there. And then I went back to my, for the rest of October, this was October 15th, 16th. So for the next 2 weeks, I hunted one of my private spots. I had a decent buck showing up. So I put some time there. Saturday morning, October 19th, I want to say it was 19th or the 20th. I'll remember this for the rest of my life. My phone goes off. I'm in the stand on my private spot. My camera goes off in the private, and I get like a blurry picture of a deer walking away. But on the side, I saw like what looked like either was a split G2 or really heavy palmation. But I really didn't think anything of it. So I hunted the rest of the day at this spot, and I got home, and I remembered about the picture. So I went on, I blew it up, cleared it up, and I'm like, that's a good deer.
Right.
That what looks like, he had one picture close and then one picture was far, and I seen his tines would look like way above his head. So I'm like, that looks like a really good deer. So I pulled those cameras out and I swapped them with 2 of my new Tacticams. They've been taking great videos and pictures for me. So I put them in on a fresh scrape that I found right close to where this buck was headed. He was headed into a direction, and then he was coming up out of the bottom, walked off to the right along the ridge, and there was a huge scrape. I'm talking the hood of a truck size scrape. So, the branches all twisted. Had you not
found that scrape? You haven't passed that area since? Okay.
Nope.
So that's the community scrape.
The only sign that I seen was a couple rubs, decent rubs, but I really don't hunt rubs that much. But I just figured that they were spending time there because of the amount of oaks, the acorns that were on the ground, and there was rubs. I figured the deer were spending time there. So this was, this is October 20th. The time I got over there was probably the next weekend. So 23rd, 24th-ish, something like that time. I put the Tacticams. Literally, I would say it was 4 days. I was still hunting the other spot, because I'm not hunting over a blurry picture. I'm not sure what it was. I'm not putting my time into a spot that I really wasn't sure. I knew I had a good buck showing up at daylight at my private spot. So I go to my private spot, and at 4 o'clock, was getting dark at that time here, I think, or like 6, 4:30-ish, my camera goes off, Tacticam, and this buck that I saw in the blurry picture shows up. And I literally in the stand that I'm a half hour away, I'm shaking like he was 50 yards from me. Because I knew right away this was once in a lifetime. This is insane. Public land. So I'm hunting with my cousin at this private spot, and I'm texting him. I'm like, "You're not going to believe this." I was like, "I'm so pissed to even be in this private spot right now. I have no idea. I just want to leave. I honestly just wanted to leave. I would throw my bow on the ground and just leave this place right now." And the way the camera was, it looked like he came up from the bottom and then down to the scrape. So I got him going up. I got him coming down. I got him coming on the scrape. I got so much video of this deer and he spent, this is prime daylight. He spent a half hour in this same spot. So
it messed
right
you
then
all
and there,
up.
right then and there, I knew. I said, I'm not hunting this private spot anymore. I really don't care. I took all my stuff down. I left, and I've said I'm going to put all of my effort into this spot. There's just the buck that I've seen is just, you don't see this here in New York. You might see it. You see it out in, Weston by you see it,
Right.
But here you don't. So I was like, I don't know if I'm going to kill this buck. I really don't think I will because I'm new to hunting public. I really don't know much about hunting public land. So I started hunting hard. I hunted the wind. I made sure the wind was always coming up because I figured that he was always coming from the bottom. The 2 times that I seen him on camera, he was coming from the bottom. So, and it was very thick briars. So I figured he's got to be bedding down there. I mean, I know the bucks love to bed low and they feed, they're going to be feeding up in the afternoons. I knew that much. And then, so I hunted from October, that 25th week to the beginning of November. That weekend, the beginning of November, open crossbow here. So I ended up running into 2 people at the parking spot over here, and they were, very nice guys. They were trying to exchange, information. They ended up having 2 cell cams out, they said, and they had a couple nice bucks. And they were telling me that they will be here every weekend from now on, a crossbow hunt into gun season. So I was like, okay. The following weekend, nobody in the parking garage. No one. I mean, no cars. So I knew with gun season coming at that time, it was 2 weeks. I had to put everything I had into it to get this buck. November, now it's say November 4th. I had a camera on an opening in the same stretch. It kind of was like if you picture a football field, but going downhill. One side had a rock wall going down it. The other side had a big ravine with a stream going down it. So either he was walking up the ravine or going down the rock wall. It was always going just one way. The one way I seen him going this way, and the other way was going that way.
Okay.
I put a camera in the opening on the rock wall. Your face is going to be on the left side on the rock wall. November 4th, I was not in there. I decided I got to take a break. I was hunting for a week and a half hard. November 4th at 7 a.m., he walked through the rock wall. Literally where I've had my set for the past week and a half, he walks through the rock wall at 7 o'clock. Now, he walked through the rock wall at 7 o'clock and headed straight down from walking the ridge, headed straight down in the bottom. That afternoon, I got through the rock wall and I went down 20 yards of the rock wall, found a real nice tree set up. I set my sticks, set my platform. I'm set up. It was close to last shooting light, and I heard a loud grunt. One of the loudest grunts I've ever heard down on the bottom. Whole bunch of crashing around. Now it's dark. I can't see anything. So I knew right away that I'm going in this spot in the morning. Now it's Saturday morning coming in. I park. I've been getting there. It gets light at, 6 o'clock here. I was there at 4:30. I'm set up at 5 every morning. I'm beating everybody in this place.
Yeah.
I'm parking in there. I want everybody to know that I'm in here.
You don't want to walk through people either. That's
exactly. So I'm there early and I'm getting in. So just as it gets light, I hear what sounds like, because it's so dry up here this year and it goes down, you could hear everything. As I look down 200 yards, I see what I'm going to say is a 125-inch 8-pointer, just a monster 8-pointer, which I wouldn't pass up even after seeing a buck that I seen on camera.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
He cuts in. This is about 150 yards from me. He cuts into the thicket, and no sooner than he cuts in, he runs out with his tail between his legs. all the way. I've never seen a deer run out all the way down. He goes down to the next bench, and then he starts like scraping and making rubs, and I'm watching him. So I tried calling, grunting, nothing. And I always heard stuff in the thicket, right? So, it's getting, I don't know, 11 o'clock now, and my phone hasn't stopped. So I gotta get down. I gotta start returning some calls. I know I'm gonna get back here in the afternoon. So I do that. I get back. I left everything in the same exact tree, which I don't do often. I always move around. But I'm seeing so much from this spot. I'm using it as like more of an observation spot just to see what's going on down in this bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So I set back up there in the afternoon. Actually, I just get up in the tree and I'm like, the wind's coming up to me. I'm like, I want to get a little closer to the bedding. I had just get up to my saddle. I get everything taken down. I want to get closer to the bedding. So I go, I would say 30 yards closer to the bedding, popped up the big buck, which I think was the big buck, pops up with 2 does. He runs down the next. Yeah. He runs down the next bench, which is pretty much all the way on the bottom now, on the stream bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So I set up. I didn't see anything for the rest of the afternoon. And I kind of figured I blew the deer out of there, and I was kind of really upset about it. But I knew one thing that, I'm going to still hunt. Just because I didn't see nothing the night and I jumped them, I'm going to still hunt. The next morning I get in there, and I hear all types of commotion in the dark. Grunting, just chasing, just a whole bunch of stuff going on. As it gets light, I'm glassing down there because I hear all this noise. And I see this buck that I got on camera just pushing. I never seen so many bucks in one area. There obviously was a hot doe down there, and he was pushing every buck away. He'd push this buck over here, then run back to the doe. He'd push this buck over here and run back to the doe. I counted 8 different bucks, and 3 of them I would shoot.
How far is this from you at this point?
About 150 yards at this point, because he had jumped down the next day to this spot. I figured he was with a doe, but I never seen the doe. I just saw that one buck run out that morning, and then saw him. He was with 2 does. So for the next 3 days, I kept going to the same spot, and I would see him down on the bottom with the 3 does. He would always be pushing every buck out. There were so many bucks coming in, he'd push them out. He'd keep pushing them out. This went on for 3 days. The 4th day, I said, I'm going down to the bottom. The wind was perfect. I have to move. I go down to the bottom. I don't see a deer for 3 days.
This is just
no
a
deer.
Grind, yeah.
Nothing.
Man.
I'm like, this is crazy, right? So I pull all my stuff out of there, and it's like a huge bowl, and then there's that thicket that runs down. I said, I'm going to go to the other side of the thicket. A lot of the deer that I've seen either are running into that. If I jump them, they run into that thicket. They're safe down in there. So I set up there. This was last week, Thursday. It was afternoon. I skipped the morning. I was just beat. I've been hunting hard.
Yeah.
Thursday afternoon, I sit. When I get set up, I would say about 2 o'clock. By 4 o'clock, I still haven't seen a deer. I'm just really frustrated. Nothing. It was one of those overcast days. You could hear everything, but you don't see nothing, like not even a squirrel.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we had a couple of those in Illinois.
At 4:30, which is getting pretty dark here, I hear walking, and I look down from me about 85 yards, and out steps this buck, just calm as could be, eating. And all I knew was like, I found him. It's been a dry spell here for a little while. I wasn't sure what happened. I figured he lost his does and he went 10 miles away. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That you think the worst.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to do everything I can to try to get this buck. I was grunting. I was snort wheezing. He never even barely looked at me.
Really?
He might have looked once or twice at all of this, never cared. So as he works his way up to the bowl, he's almost working away from me. 2 does come up straight to me. Now it's 4:45. I could barely see anything. The 2 does he obviously was with come up. He comes around. He gets to be within 30 yards Thursday afternoon, and I could not shoot because I couldn't see my pin.
Mm-hmm.
And he was literally 30 yards. I've been hunting this deer for 2.5 weeks so hard. He gets into shooting, distance at 5 o'clock now, which is way after, I just need 5 more minutes.
Slap in the
5 more
face.
minutes, right?
Yeah.
I ended up staying in the tree till 6 o'clock. That's an hour in the dark for him to leave because he was with them does, grunting, messing around in that spot. The last I remember was he went back to the left where I always was going. Friday morning, I said, I'm going down over there, but I'm going to stay up a little bit high. I don't want to push. Friday morning, I get in there. I don't see a deer till like 9:15 in the morning. 9:15 in the morning, 2 young bucks come running out of the thicket, and I knew right away that he's pushing bucks out. He comes walking down the valley now. He's probably the closest he's been since, the night before when I couldn't shoot, where it was about 70 yards going down into the thicket to my left. He ends up bedding down with a doe, and one spike and four pointers up here and another young buck's over here. Now I can't see him or the doe, but I could see the mother deer, and I could, pinpoint where he bedded because it was so thick, he just disappeared. So I've been watching this happen for over a week. I'm like, tomorrow's gone. I have to do something about this. So I get down out of my saddle. The wind is blowing. We got 15-mile-an-hour gusts. It's blowing up. So I'm going to use that to my advantage. Every time the wind blew, I walked 10 steps. Every time the wind blew, I walked 10 steps. And it goes down. He's on the bottom. I was up one bench. As I get to the edge of the bench, I made a mistake, and I jumped a little buck that I didn't see right under me. Oh. He runs. The big buck stands up. He runs. The little buck runs past him. He keeps an eye on the little buck, runs. He drops right back down. Oh. The doe never moved, so he laid right back down.
How far was he when he stood up?
At that point, 65 yards, and I'm on the ground. But he dropped. I lost him completely, but I just memorized the bush that he laid in, and I kept walking. And it got to about 40 yards when I realized that this could possibly work. I was going to give it my all.
He didn't believe it at first, but yeah, it's getting better.
I was like, this could possibly actually work. So I get to 40 and I stop, and I was like, well, if he comes up here, I could get a shot. But then again, I'm like, I'm going to be a little greedy. I got this far. Let me cut another 15, 20 yards off. The wind's perfect. I have cover, and it's a lot of rocks where I am. So I was kind of like, a little bit of leaves, rocks, a little bit of leaves, rocks. So I get to this big rock with a big oak tree. I dump my bag down, everything that I had on, because I brought my pack, and I just dump everything down. I take my heavy jacket, and I just throw it off, and I get up, and I range the bush. It's 31 yards where the bush he's in. When I picked up the rangefinder, I noticed the doe. She was 20 yards exactly, but she was facing the other way.
Oh.
And I'm so happy that she was never facing.
Yeah.
She happened I was probably standing on that rock for about, 5-10 minutes, and she happened to get up and start feeding. And as she gets up, he gets up, stretches. I range him. It was 32 yards. I draw back, and as I'm looking through my peep, I'm like, it's too thick. I just did all this work. If I hit the smallest of sticks, I'm going to blow this whole thing. All this work I just did. It took me 3 hours to get to him. Damn. It is now 2 o'clock. I got down at 10.
Wow.
Dang.
So I let down draw, and it was kind of like a gully where he is, and I didn't realize he almost disappears, but he comes up face on to me, and the doe was kind of out here. So what he does was he tries to circle the doe back into the thicket, and that would put him at a 20-yard broadside shot. He was stepping up out of the thing. I drew back, and I'm holding my draw, and he kind of stops, and he just looks at me, and I just let it go. And it was just slow motion, just smoked him. All I could say was, I just was like, I smoked him. He did 2 jumps, looked at the doe, and dropped over, man. Oh. And I sat down. It was the most rewarding feeling I've ever.
Oh, I bet.
Mind you, that buck behind me was my biggest buck, was about 120-inch 10-pointer.
Wow.
This buck I taped out was 148 and 2/8.
Dude.
My God. Were you standing by a bush or a tree or anything when you were?
Just had a tree.
Okay.
I just had a tree, and it was up. The elevation was just a little bit higher. a little bit higher than where he was. It was kind of a little belly, an old stream bed that he was bedded in, but it was just thick briars.
Man.
He made a mistake when the spike ran by him that he laid back down, because that's exactly when I pinpointed exactly where he was.
Yep.
Right.
And at that point, I was close enough to know that, I couldn't see him though. It was so thick. I just seen him lay back down. I couldn't see him. But
Man.
it just worked out. I mean, even if I was, 10 minutes later, that doe would have been stood up eating and she would have saw me.
Yeah.
It just happened to be when I got to that rock, that doe got up to just start feeding, and he just went to corral her back into the bedding. To be honest with you guys, I would, if you asked me today, can you go spot and stalk that deer? I would say, hell no. There's no way. There's no way.
Oh, man.
It's just the way it worked out. I used the wind to my advantage. He was bedded under an oak tree. The oaks were still on the tree. So every time the wind, that helped me with the noise.
Yep.
Oh, the nuts falling down. Yeah.
Yeah, and the leaves still on the tree, every time the wind.
Yeah.
And I honestly couldn't believe it. I just sat down for 10, 15 minutes. I didn't even go up to him. I just couldn't believe it. But
Dude,
public
you put
land, my first year, public land.
Like two weeks you chased that buck roughly? Week and a half?
Oh, better of 2 weeks. Yeah, maybe a hair
It's
over.
hardcore chasing, and
That's
it comes to
hardcore,
like
yeah.
that's like the climax of climaxes when you're trying to like chase a single buck.
Oh yeah.
I've been putting everything to the side. I mean, I've been sleeping and hunting.
Yeah.
That's
literally.
awesome.
Yeah.
I've been in bed at 7:30. I've been up 2 hours before light just so I could get in there, because I knew the caliber of buck. You don't see that here. So I was going to give it my all.
And how far of a drive is it for you too? I'm sure it's a decent chunk.
So that was close.
No, this was the close one.
Oh, was it the
5
close one?
minutes?
Wow, that's not
5
bad.
minutes away.
Yeah,
And it was just all the hard work, man. It just made it even greater. I mean, being that it's my first Pope and Young buck with the bow. I mean, it's just
well, it's not
That's awesome.
and you're not drawing it up to luck at all. I mean, you literally had to get down and
yes,
make the move. You literally had to go after it and make it happen, because
at that point, yeah, exactly. I don't think it would have. Why would that doe come all the way up?
Sure.
He had all the food down there. I've been watching him down there for days do the same thing. With the gun opening the following morning, the buck is so rutted up, anybody could walk to the ridge, jump him. He's going to stop and look probably, right? And they're going to whack him.
Yeah.
That's all that was in my head.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's gun. I got to do something.
Yeah.
Yep.
It worked out, and it happened to be just an absolute. I mean, I got up to him, and I knew he was big, but I mean, I don't shoot caliber bucks like that. You know what I mean? But now, first year on public land, getting 2 bucks. One happened to be, one just right under 150 inch.
That's freaking amazing.
It was just, I will remember that for the rest of my life. That story.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, that's inspirational, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, that's just a true meaning of public land grind. I mean, there was days, like I said, I didn't see anything, and I was just like, I mean, you go from seeing so many bucks to seeing nothing. It's just,
but it's easy. It's easy to hunt when you can see stuff every day, or at least hear stuff happening around you. But 100%. When you go, you said 4 days without seeing anything,
yes,
and it's like you're still gonna put the time in. That's iron will right there,
Especially after grinding, like you said, you started September 16th. In a different state.
Yes.
I mean, you started early. You didn't go on a elk hunt or anything, but that you still started early, and that's a grind.
And to put it all up, I had a trip planned for public land, Ohio, that I'm not going to go. Nick Betts made a good. He told me, he's like, "Why go find a deer when you have a deer?"
Yeah.
That's
just like fishing,
man. That's the key thing. Don't move off of the spot, and that's. I felt like that way in Illinois. Like, I just moved off of great intel. And I think that's like a reoccurring theme for, it seems like, season in and season out.
Yeah, it's the same. People say that in fishing all the time. You don't leave fish to find fish. I mean, why would that change for hunting either?
And especially this caliber buck for this area.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
and when I think of the mobile hunting game, people jump around to like state to state, public to public. They're jumping around because they're like, oh well, if I put at least a week in here, Like I tell Bobby, you're guaranteed at 120, 130. Like, no,
Yeah.
you're not because you just sunk in how many weeks, and you know, it
Yeah.
sounded like you had one other opportunity at a decent buck, and then
Yep.
that opportunity within shooting range. You know, you had 2
Yes.
opportunities after 2 weeks, and that's just the way
Yeah.
the cards fell.
And I mean, really, beyond the point of me shooting that one on Connecticut public land, I really haven't had any other opportunities.
Right.
Yeah, I was
But
seeing
I mean,
haven't,
like
you know,
it's badass. This is like your first experience with public land, and it's not necessarily going to be the same for everybody. But like,
No.
you've been hunting for how long, roughly? 20-ish, 18.
Yeah, 20. I mean, I started when I was, really, my dad up on my own 14. I'm 30.
Yeah, so you're like
Yeah.
understand like the habits of just the general habits of deer
Yes.
and other wildlife. So like anybody that's listening to this is like, oh, I'm going to dive into public land and I might find more success. If you're fresh to hunting, it's still going to be tough because if you don't have that understanding of how wildlife reacts and how to even work around other hunters on top of it, because that was like one of your main concerns at the beginning, like it's tough. And this is awesome and inspirational, but I don't want people to just be like diving into public land thinking it's going to be a magical thing for them.
Yeah,
no. but it does potentially, like Brandon proving, like it does potentially provide more opportunity, but also opportunity at potentially bigger bucks. And like,
for some places, for sure.
Yeah, for some places. I mean, you nice manicured private, but dude, like around here, and I mean, I'm sure you would argue, there was a lot of guys not in that parking lot. So the private, in a lot of these circumstances, the private is way more pressured than the public.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
If you add up, the 4-wheeler instances, whatever, like on these small parcels, like there's way more pressure on the. Granted, those deer could be more used to it, but that's just
what's tough with the public land. 2 hunters could be a lot if the habitat doesn't hold it. You know what I mean? If that's all the habitat provides, like coming from Illinois where we were. Like the pressure there was insane to begin with. That was like PA, Michigan pressure. Like there was a piss load of people there. But then the habitat itself only had like 6 good pockets, probably, if you were kind of looking at it from a sky view. And everybody was piled into those areas. Mm-hmm. And deer know those areas are going to be pressured. So it's like it doesn't give you a lot of time to figure it out on short jaunts.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm trying to say is like I don't want people to not hunt public land because it's there for everybody to use. And I think it's an adventure and I love the adventure side of it, but also just don't go into it thinking you're going to just fall into magic.
Yeah. And Brandon, he walked up on the guy's camera and like you could have stopped right there and be like, too much. I mean, we walked for, we kind of did the same thing, but we walked past 8 stands in Illinois. I mean,
oh my
literally
God, at
8
least
stands and kicked 3 hunters. Like, no, but the deer density could have potentially provided that. And like proof in your story, moving 100 yards here or 70 yards this way or whatever, like you're getting that much closer to the bedding and cover. Like, in those instances, I know how your mindset is. You're like, I'm moving closer to the thick stuff. I'm losing shot opportunities, but it only takes that one opening that actually makes a difference. But I'm not even I'm in the game, but I'm not in the game with a bow.
Right.
Like I'm not, and that's, my encounters this year have been like that. It's just been like 70 yards at the closest or 60 yards. And I told myself I wasn't going to shoot past like 40 or 50 yards max. I just didn't want to do it. But
you did it though. And not you. I mean, Brandon.
Yeah.
Brandon beat us out. I mean, he made that move. He put that time in. Like that's what it takes.
Yeah.
That's what it takes.
I could have hunted past that day, but it was literally, to me, I was taking it as this is my last opportunity, my last day to hunt this for the year. That's what was in my head. Like I said, I always grab the gun and go, but that's not what I wanted to do. You know what I mean?
And you're not risking anything. It's public land. It's a buck. It's like potentially your last opportunity. Just go for it. And that's
what I figured. Yeah.
That might be the best buck story you have in your entire life right there.
100%. I mean, like I said, if you guys asked if I could, stalk a buck being crunchy and dry and up a hill down to the bottom, I would say you guys are out of your minds.
It's all in the details. Like it's all in the detail. I stalked deer using a whole swarm of starlings before because they're making so much cracklings. They're making so much noise. It's like if you can pick up on the wind and the fact that the tree that they're sitting on has leaves on it when most others don't. There you go. That's all all it takes.
I don't think I said it yet, Brandon, but congratulations.
Yeah,
dude.
congrats.
That's freaking awesome, man.
Thanks, guys. And up until this hunt, I hated the wind. I really couldn't stand the wind. Every time you think you hear something, then the wind blows. You're like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
I just, I used it. I used it to my advantage. The wind was perfect. It's just a lot of things that aligned right that helped me get this buck. Other than me just grinding and pushing. I mean, I could have gave up any time. I did see for a while. Even early season, it was just slow, and it just worked out. And
that's fantastic.
You've got a strong mentality. And a lot of people, even myself, I struggle with that. Just staying mentally strong.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, especially not seeing stuff. You go from seeing good bucks to not seeing anything for almost a week straight. It's like, I thought 100% the deer was gone.
Yeah.
He found a doe, he bred that doe, and he's on to the next doe, which that's what happens. It could have been a totally different doe than he was with the previous week, which I would think so. But I think that he just,
well, and
just got hooked.
He probably was. I mean, he probably was on a different property for 2 or 3 days at least during those spans that you didn't see those deer. Yeah. And he just comes. I mean, you look at those collared deer studies, and they're like, here, boom. This property that's 2 miles away for a couple days, or a couple hits, and then they're back straight over. It's just that's why you got to put the time in, and that's like lessons learned this year. I'm gonna apply it. Like, okay, walk away mentally saying, always keep pushing further, always keep hunting the sign. If you see deer over there, move over there. Like, those are all the pickups that I'm reinforcing for next year. With the addition of, don't burn yourself out early, especially when you're not seeing the sign.
100%.
Like, trust that you have put your cameras in good sign. Yeah, I mean, deer always move, but the fact, if they're not back there, like, maybe they're just not on that public yet. Maybe they're not off of that private. The corn hasn't been cut. There's too many acorns. They don't have to move yet. Like, don't burn yourself out in an instance where you don't have to, because it's going to take 2 weeks of sheer determination, waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning and just grinding it out till, there's nothing left. And, I think that's my big takeaway this year. And I still have 2 weeks to apply it.
Yeah.
So,
great job again, dude.
Yeah, man.
Thank you.
That's so impressive.
Thanks, guys. And with with all that being said, I still have my regular season tag here because I filled that out, my bow tag, the day before gun, which now I get another tag here. So New York is $2. So I could still shoot another buck, and I also have 2 doe tags. So I'm not done.
That being said, are you
Good.
going to go grind more public, or are you just going to sit in private and just take a breather?
Well, I took a couple days off to think about it, but I have another decent buck showing up on public. Not
so
as
he's going
big
to
as
go right back into the grind.
If I could go grind on the public again and just be rewarded with another good buck, I think you could consider me a public land hunter from now on.
Yeah.
We're all public land hunters in the end.
Yeah, exactly. Are you taking a gun this time around, or a bow?
No, I'm staying with the bow, man.
Heck yeah, man.
If I wasn't able to get that buck with the bow, I might have tried with the black powder.
Yep.
I'm a bow hunter at heart, and if I could go into public land with people gun hunting and shoot one with the bow, that's just even.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to feel like I'm the same, but then, like, after watching that deer walk at 60 yards, and I'm like, and then another one walk at, I'm like, I just black powder. Like, I have a few public land bucks under my belt, but at a deer of that caliber, I want to go kill it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the main thing. I want to kill something.
I love archery hunting, but I want to kill stuff.
Yeah. I mean,
in the most romantic way possible.
I haven't picked up a gun in quite some time for deer hunting. But I was really thinking about it after seeing this buck and hunting so hard with the bow. I was like, man, I could get this done with the gun.
You can't get more romantic than stalking.
Yeah.
His bedroom and killing him standing up out of his bed.
Yeah, I love it.
I just could remember just the way he stands up, he stretched, and just the way everything just aligned. And the shot was super slow motion, and when that is perfect shot. I mean, it couldn't get any better. I double lunged him, like I said. And it helped me that the doe didn't know anything.
Yeah.
So she was there. He did 2 hops, looked over, and just dumped. He was dead in 30 seconds.
I never asked you. Did you have a GoPro or anything running on you? I know you.
Unfortunately, no.
Okay, gotcha. Bobby yells at me, but I turn my cap around and put the GoPro right here, and I look like a dummy. But
Just
it
for pictures.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, I like I said, I wish I had something, which I
Yeah.
don't have too much stuff in the following years. I'm going to have as much stuff as I can. It was just one of those things. Like I said, it was just the last minute. I got to try everything.
Yeah.
I have all the camera gear up in the tree. I was ready.
Yeah.
I turned the camera on multiple times with them.
Yeah.
I have lots of footage of them walking, chasing the bucks. But
Dude, I mean, even like in my head, the self-filming stuff, if I was in your situation, I wouldn't have wanted to climb down just because I would have had to pack all of that camera stuff up. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
sometimes it's just works against you too much.
yeah,
Well, that too, and the memory that you have of this hunt is here from your
Mhm.
perspective.
man.
It's not ruined by a wide-angle GoPro where you're barely seeing anything. You know,
Mhm.
it's all in your head and all
Yeah.
those little details.
No, you're right. I mean, like I said, I'll never forget it. But it's gonna be a great mount, and it's gonna be a great story always. So
For forever. Yeah. That's
Man.
awesome, dude.
That's the definition of making the move too. Like that's
Yeah.
yeah,
you can't get.
it was
better
just
than that.
like I said, it was just all or nothing. And I was talking to myself. I said, I don't care if it takes me 6 hours to get to him. I have the time.
Yeah.
And honestly, in between I was answering emails for Trophyline here every once in a while.
Yeah.
I had a couple minutes. The wind was kind of, dead. I was answering some emails, so I was still working while.
Oh, yeah.
Don't let
Yeah.
Ferg know I'm stalking a buck right now.
Yeah,
we play that game all the time. So
I mean, I think I text Jeff and Marion in our customer service chat, and I said I just shot the biggest buck, and then that was all. Nick was calling me, Sean was calling me, everybody's calling me.
I was on the phone
So
with
it was-
Marion, and she's like, I just got a text from Brandon. He just shot the biggest buck of his life. It's like, and then I saw the picture. I was like, oh my gosh, what state? Indiana?
Yeah.
No.
It was,
That's
it was
awesome,
good.
man. Yeah, I think that's a great way to end this little season update. And of course, when you guys actually hear this, it'll probably be behind. But great story, New York, right? Public land,
Yep.
giant stalking.
Yeah,
Can't
got
get
down.
better than that.
I know, but you got to also give it to the saddle, because I was able to move here. And the spots that this was, the trees were, you were not going to go up them with a climb or anything else.
Yeah.
They were just crabby trees. At the last point that I stopped, I only could set up 2 sticks. The last setup before making the move down. I mean, I just wanted to get up a little bit so I could see, which helped me pinpoint right where everybody was. And, I made a move. I did make a mistake by kicking up this one other spike that I didn't see, but the big guy made a mistake that he laid back down. So,
yeah. Phenomenal, dude. Well, you guys have, couple great weeks left of hunting, rut activity, post rut, when they're really on their feet, when they're really searching. Keep going. Take a note from Brandon's story. Keep grinding your butts off if you are after some decent ones.
I mean, that's where the most success is. Anybody could go in the woods and you get lucky and to jump a deer or shoot a deer. But, if you find one and he's there, and even if you weren't getting pictures, my last picture was the 4th of November, but I was seeing him.
Yeah.
Got to keep going. Even if you stop seeing him. And I just knew he was around. Something was telling me I got to keep going at it. You just got to put the time in. You put the time in, you're going to get rewarded.
Agreed.
Fantastic,
Agreed 100%.
man. And if you guys do have success, again, submit your success story online.
Yeah,
We
we'd love
have
to
a
see it.
success
Share
story.
it.
So we can look at it. We can share it amongst all the guys and girls that work at Trophyline. We love just passing around, seeing it, and then sharing it on our own social. Other than that, I think that does it. If you guys want to hear anything, write us, comment, ask us some questions, whatever you guys want to do, we can try to cover. The next one is probably another big buck story. Hopefully,
Hopefully.
I think that's what it's going to be.
Yeah, if one of you guys shoot one, invite me on it, because I want to hear this. We got to talk.
Like
we got to support more people here.
like a round table discussion.
Yeah, we got to do this. We got to do this more often, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, that does it for the Mobile Venatic podcast, episode 7 or 8. I still don't know. But yeah, thank you guys for listening.